I'm a sucker for an action figure that has hieroglyphics on it. Was the point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, even though, yes, I read what they put on him, and it's just gibberish. They didn't actually write.
Listen up, Vegas. Welcome to the Slaughterhouse.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Slaughterhouse. I'm your host, Cecil Phoenix, and with me today is my right-hand man-at-arms, Ken from Toykennections, Deadly Pencils, and a sucker for mosquito, Paul from GI Joburg, and our very special guest, defender of the secrets of Castle Grayskull and of hieroglyphics, Scott from Spector Creative.
The defender of the secrets of Castle Grayskull, that would make me He-Man, and no, I'm definitely not He-Man.
Well, you know enough about the secrets of Castle Grayskull.
That's what He-Man would say.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I know Cringer's somewhere there behind you, right? You know,
I can't about another foot to that in that direction. Yes, he and Panther are facing off over the Sarlacc pit next to Granomir and apparently a TIE fighter on the other side.
Granomir, that's got to go right on the floor, I imagine.
It is on the floor. I get should I spin the?
Yeah.
Oh, my darn music stands.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Whoa.
Did I move that enough? Hold on.
I kind of see him, way back there.
I'm just seeing stuff, and that always gets me.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Granomir's down there. You can see him. Yeah.
Amongst being the toy guru and an expert in Egyptian history, it appears you're also a musician.
Oh yeah, well, I don't want to say an expert in in Egyptian history. I'm going to get some people from actual museums coming after me with but oh yeah, I play the violin.
Oh, very good.
Oh, nice.
Okay,
nice.
Cool.
And my office kind of also my music room / my toy room / everything. So
keep all your passions in one place, huh?
Yes, there's a music stand holding action figures that also hold sheet music. So
Perfect.
Why not?
So as I was saying, Paul from GI Joburg is a fast becoming a MOTU fan and is a fan of your channel as well. And Ken has a huge collection of your he's got your action figure. In fact, he just had to pull that up. Ken, where's your?
Okay. So the story goes is I'm just cleaning figures. Not that you have to when they're behind glass. And I knock one of them over, and the mask falls off, and I go, yeah. Because it's the Eternian Guard with Scott's face on it, and I'm like, okay, I guess he's coming on the channel soon. So bit of an omen if we have anything like that. I think I'd almost completely forgotten. I can't even remember if I've ever taken the mask off the figure until that point. But yes,
and I hope most people haven't.
Most people elect to keep it on, do they?
That was the whole point. That even if you people were bitter that my head was on an Eternian Guard, well, you can put the mask over, and all you're seeing is the eyes. So it's you don't have to look at my face. You get the option, and it's a pretty cool option. But
well, I had no issue with it. It's just that at the time I'd forgotten or didn't know. I'm like, wait a minute, I know this guy.
Surprise and delight. That's what toys are all about.
Yeah,
well, that's right.
I was cool with it.
I have to mention, my brother Todd is a huge fan of yours. Scott loves your channel. He's been following your career for a little while now, watching your original interviews and stuff that you would do at toy fairs and conventions and stuff, and is a huge fan of your Egyptian hieroglyphics series, being that he's an artist himself and
awesome.
Likes to challenge himself on different forms of art. So he was super excited that you were going to be on the show today. I didn't actually have the Masters of the Universe line that you were a part of, but I did actually purchase the subscription for my brother. So I gifted that to him along with the Voltron line that came from Maddie So I was able to get a hands-on sort of play with those whenever they would arrive to him, and he still proudly displays those to his day. But I said that I would say hi from my brother Todd. He'll be watching this with great enjoyment for sure. You didn't have any input on the Voltron line though, did you, Scott?
Definitely. I mean, not zero, but not much. They basically came to me at a few key points, and I would say like, well, like they would say A, B, or C, and I would say A, and they might follow what I said, they might not.
Right, gotcha.
I think it was really like the packaging of the Sven figure and having the swappable heads. That was pretty much my only contribution, I think. I don't want to take credit for people's work.
Sure. Sven is the only figure that he has left carded. He has the rest of them all proudly displayed loose. Where's a loose option available in the Voltron line? I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I know he had them carded and then opened them.
Well, the figures were Sven was the only one that was carded like a blister card. All the others were in open trays or like boxes, if you will. Gotcha.
Well, he's definitely got that one carded then. That's probably why that's the only one I've ever seen in his collection that is carded then. But,
yeah, it was designed like to be kept on card, kind of.
Gotcha. Very good.
Cool.
All right. Well, so
yeah,
Scott, why don't you give us a quick outline on how you got started in the toy industry?
Sure. So after college, I majored in film and communication, and that my senior thesis was on using toys as a way of marketing movies.
Nice.
So I was always very interested in this. And growing up in Southern California, I'd always seen the Mattel logo on the giant Hawthorne building off the 405 going up from Orange County to Los Angeles. So, kind of always knew there was this giant toy company in my backyard. I tried to get right out of college. I started applying to Mattel, but like I would just get their postcard saying, "Thank you, we have your resume on file. We'll keep it on file for 6 months." And I wound up working in getting into advertising, marketing with a pharmaceutical company or a firm that does pharmaceutical accounts, meaning medical. And I worked there for 4 years, learned more about glaucoma care and all, and skin care than I ever thought I would know. And it turned out that skill set of being able to do marketing when restrained by the rules of medical industry, because you've got all the warnings and the, indications and, all the fine print they have to put. So having spent 4 years doing this, after connecting with someone at Mattel, they said, we're actually looking for a copywriter who can do that for Hot Wheels. And I didn't really connect the dots until after I got the job, really, where I realized that the toy industry and the pharmaceutical industry have very similar regulations, if you will, as far as parts warning and, age grade and all, and
of course
medical side effects. So, so it was sort of, I had this weird marketing skill set where I could write marketing copy, but I also knew how to deal with all the legal stuff. And that was how I got started in the toy industry. And I sort of worked my way toward, I did not just jump in and was like the brand manager of He-Man. That was something I worked my way toward, but eventually got there, and it was great. I mean, and I still work on toys every day, and with Spector Creative is my firm, which helps people who have ideas for toys or any product, if they need help branding, creating content, and just the general, how do you get it to market? I help clients get their product to Target and Amazon, Walmart, setting up their own e-commerce, that kind of thing. So after
that's right.
Yep.
So Spector Creative isn't just a YouTube channel; it's your business that you run yourself. Although Spector Creative is a very successful YouTube channel, it actually goes beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, well, it basically just started off as a way of advertising my business, talking about the inner workings of the toy industry. Well, actually, honestly, it started because of it was right at the beginning of COVID when we were all locked down in our houses and I had nothing to do. So I'm like, okay, I'll start a YouTube channel. That sounds like a good idea.
Sure.
And it just, but it was also meant to, basically, promote my business. I'm not hiding behind that. Or there were people who wrote in the comment section, he's only doing this to promote his website. Yes, I'm being very forthright about that. Thank you.
Yeah. There's not as many cat videos as I thought there might be, though.
I know. I did those with my daughter. It was kind of like a daddy-daughter thing, and like she sort of outgrew it. But if there's enough demand, maybe we'll bring them back.
Well, the thing I do like about your videos is you're very active in terms of replying comments. Like about a year ago, I put a comment, maybe less than that, and I was like, too big a channel, he's never going to reply. And all of a sudden, ping, you got to reply to Spector Creative. I'm like, oh, he actually answered my question, which is kind of cool. So, yeah. I
feel like it's a two-way streak. If you're subscribing to a channel and watching the video, it's like you're also, I know it's saying obligated to talk to your audience, but that's like the whole point of it. It's like YouTube is more than just videos. It's a social media. It's an interactive thing.
Right.
So, thank you. I mean, I don't get to every comment, regrettably. I did at first, but it just got out of control. But I do read everyone, and I try to comment back as much as I can because I appreciate people.
You're also posting daily, right? So I get why it would be hard to keep up with comments. So, yeah. Yeah,
and that's actually something I actually really want feedback on is, I've wondered, am I doing too many videos? Like, is daily too much? Because, I don't know if that sets me apart, or if that's just like, I don't need to watch a Spector Creative video because there'll be another one tomorrow.
Right. Well, I mean, is it too much for you? Is doing one a day too much for you? If you're happy doing it.
That's the trick, isn't it? I don't record one a day. I'll like bang out 10 of them.
Yeah. You batch record, which is what some of us do. Yeah. Batch record.
Yeah. They're done about 30 days in advance. So I'm not like sitting there every day under the gun, like, oh my God, I got to come up with an idea for a video today.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And with regards to whether it's too much or not, depending, I actually realize now, I've never actually looked on the playlist tab of your channel before, because if some of the common topics are sorted in a playlist, then it's not too much. You can just click the playlist, pick a topic like MOTU director's commentary or whatever, and go back and pick your favorite character or something, right? That's how I actually found. Well, no, that one I searched for King Grayskull, but that'd be something that could work out. I don't know. Just yeah.
Either way, I'm just always open to feedback. That's all I'm saying. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool.
Something I've actually, hi Scott. Something I've been kind of curious about actually with you working at Mattel, and then Matty Collector. What was the general sentiment about He-Man when you started? Because I imagine by that point, He-Man sort of was in a lower kind of wavelength within the company's sort of mental space. I think they were focusing on other things. I know Hot Wheels has always been kind of a hot property, and then that sort of got a weird resurgence in '94. But what was the general opinion of He-Man, and what was it that sort of inspired you guys to do Matty Collector as a concept? Was there? Let me break it up a little bit better. What inspired you guys to do Matty Collector? Was it because Mattel already had some kind of inclination to bringing He-Man back, or MOTU back, should we call it that? Or was it you guys loved it so much you wanted to get it into their mental space and make it happen again?
Cool. No, I think I'm like batching your questions together into like a meta answer. So to answer the first part first, the sort of the state of the brand at the time was it was considered a thrice failed brand.
Right.
It had been $1 billion brand in 85, but by 87 it was like nothing. And from a business standpoint, that's considered a failure. The fact that it suddenly, they had to stop. And then New Adventures bombed. Everyone knows that. And then the 2000X line, while we as collectors have kind of a very fond taste for it, it did very poorly at retail, and it did very poorly with kids. It only really did well with adult collectors.
Great cartoon, though, to be fair. Absolutely amazing cartoon.
My favorite He-Man cartoon by far. Like I used to watch it over and over again until like I was so sick. It's probably also what helped me with writing the bios and stuff. The fact that I'd seen the show so many times. So that was kind of the general state of the brand, not just with Mattel, but with the industry. I mean, it had just literally 2003, 2004 was when what's called the 2000X line, the one that the Four Horsemen first did with the Mike Young show, the show that we're talking about liking.
Yeah.
So that line had essentially just been cleared out of retail. And, you know, and retail was basically looking at the brand as like, yeah, this is a brand that doesn't work. So when we proposed Matty Collector, which that's the second half of your question, and it's basically the short of it is approaching upper management with the idea that Mattel wasn't doing enough for the adult collector market. I kind of brought in my own stuff and said, look at all the stuff I'm buying. It's all from other companies. We're licensing out NECA to do Staction figures when we could make these. So it was sort of just being in the right place at the right time, and they were willing to let us try out this, direct-to-consumer concept. But it definitely wasn't based around He-Man. We actually based it around the DC toys, which were at retail. That's
the one you were actually brand manager of, I think, right? Because you said Matty Collector was like a thing you did as a night job, right? And DCU was your day job kind of thing?
I mean, that's not like literally what, even though that literally is what it was, that's not like, I guess officially Matty Collector was like a project assigned to me, but it was definitely on top of a regular amount of Mattel work. I think that's a good way of putting it.
No, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
It was basically a project I was willing to do because I love doing it, but I also had to first, do the normal amount of Mattel work, which is managing a retail line.
Right.
Which at the time was the DC stuff. So yeah, that basically Matty Collector was kind of put together as a way of like promoting the current DC line at retail with additional figures you could get online. And then we put up the He-Man stuff just because I'm a huge He-Man fan. The Four Horsemen were huge He-Man fans. Originally, what became Classics was supposed to just be a continuation of the 2000X line. We were going to use the existing tooling and then what new parts we needed because the line wasn't old enough. We still had all the tooling. They hadn't been tossed yet.
Okay. Oh, cool. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. What's really great though is that the Horsemen really parlayed that into their own company and a great. Before you jumped on, the guys asked me to pull out a Mythic Legions figure, but here's Perplore, right? They made a great figure with this, and it's MOTU inspired, and it scales with the MOTU classic stuff, right? So it's I know you talk about scale a lot on your channel, but that 6.5-inch scale really took off around that time, and the wrestling figures by Mattel are made by that scale. So there's quite a lot that came good out of that.
No, I 100%. And that's what I love so much. This whole era, I think, set some nice, like, firm boundaries of what good figures should be, and which is still trickling down today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
I guess you still. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's interesting that you guys went with the classic look for He-Man rather than trying to come up with a whole new and improved style of Masters of the Universe, in the same vein as 2000X, where you could have easily gone down the route, was like, all right, if we're going to do it again, maybe we'll come up with a whole new thing. But instead, you've gone back to the lore of Masters of the Universe and picked out what the core fans were looking for.
And we finally got Queen Marlena, which is amazing, right? So we never got her, but we never got her before that, right? And we got her as Captain Glenn.
So many never again. When I was saying about how this line started as DC, I never thought MOTU was going to wind up being like the backbone of Matty and what it was known for. I thought we would do figures, and that was it. Mm-hmm. I think one of the surprising thing is the fans of the brand. I mean, I've gotten the privilege to work on almost every major kind of licensed IP brand: Batman, Spider-Man, Star Wars, whatever, Ghostbusters. He-Man fans are way more passionate than any other. and more passionate also about like protecting their property and not letting it like, I guess they're very, very concerned with it like withering away, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it was because of the fans that were able to drum up support for the subscriptions. No other brand had had fans that were, they were holding like, every sub you buy, I'll buy one. And like, I bought 100 subs and I'm going to sell 99 of them on eBay, but I'm doing it to support the line. Like people really did things like this.
Wow.
Well, the original MSRP was what? Was it $19.99? I forget. I think that's what it was. Yeah. But look at what we're paying these days, right? It's insane. Because I got into the line at the time when Super 7 had the license around like 2017. Right. And I was looking at the prices and I'd be like, man, am I really going to pay $60 for He-Man? So I do, thinking I've overpaid. Now try getting it in 2022. Right. Like it's really drummed up quite a market. And I think people realized that was the only chance, or one of the very rare chances in our lifetime, we were going to get that deep of a character selection. Right. So, yeah.
And I think it's very much tied into what you said about prices. It's now like doing that now at the cost. Like it was like if it didn't happen then, that was like the window. It had to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
No, because I know that on when we started GI Joburg, our podcast a while back, I used to compare the Hasbro figure subscription service to the Matty Collector subscription service that you guys had. Using the Matty Collector service to actually criticize what Hasbro was doing with the figure subscription service, because it felt like Matty was all in on that, whereas Hasbro was half in, half out, and it really did make it kind of muddy. And yeah, I had a lot of vocal criticism about that, but I love the Matty Collector thing. It definitely. So here's full disclosure: I don't have any of the Matty Collector MOTU figures.
I got you covered. Don't worry. I got you covered.
There we go. Thank you. But a friend of mine collected them all. But because of him, I got my hands on other really amazing Matty Collector items, like the Ghostbuster stuff that you guys did, that I absolutely love. The PKE meter, the trap, the Ghostbusters themselves, and also that big Venkman. Anyway, the thing is, it's just, I remember always pushing this whole thing, like, why don't companies use the Matty Collector model? Because it was such a great model, at least in my opinion. I thought it was probably the most efficient model for a direct-to-consumer toy line. So I'm just kind of using this as a moment to say thank you. And, that...
Oh, and by the way, thank you, because I wanted to say it as well.
And Scott, I don't know... like how familiar you are with the South African fan base of MOTU, of which I'm actually a very small part of, very, very small part of, because I'm mostly into the Origin stuff. But MOTU is huge in South Africa. It's a massive, massive toy line. I mean, I'm a GI Joe guy. For us, we get excited when we see maybe one GI Joe at a sort of a flea market or something, or a toy fair. Because usually they are filled with MOTU stuff, whether it be the Matty Collector stuff, whether it be vintage or whatever. And so I just kind of, wanted to just do a small shout out for the South African fans. So like SA fanboys, we're here with Scott. We're talking He-Man, MOTU, and I'm sure they would appreciate being recognized for that. But yeah, it's just incredible what Matty Collector has done. I think it was incredible because it also introduced me to guys like the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
And yeah, so cool work on that. Thank you. Sorry, not to be a complete weirdo, but
it's not weird at all, because it's very popular up here in Canada as well. Like people were able to get the Matty subscription up here, and the Origins line. People were like, "Oh, it's in retail now." I remember when we had a Matty Collector, and then like it's starting to show up as of about a year ago in larger quantities at Walmart's and Toys R Us, because we still got Toys R Us up here. It's showing up. I go in, I can pick up Evil Lyn, I can pick up Merman. So it's great, right? So yeah.
I think the good thing about having a subscription service is that if you want the figure, you can order it and it'll come to your house. You don't have to go hunting around Walmarts and Targets and so forth for those sort of exclusive or elusive figures. So it's one of those ones that it was available to even us Australians down under. So, a good idea is a good idea. But
I mean, while we've got Scott on here, yeah, maybe with regards to the toy making process, yeah, because when Zazel and I were brainstorming what to talk about on this particular podcast episode, I was like, well, Scott would be good to answer some of the tooling type stuff. And I know, Scott, you've mentioned on your channel a couple times that it costs about $100,000 to get a 6-inch figure done. Now, is that literally just the steel tool, or is there any plastic injection or assembly or tampos or paint involved? Because what I've heard for like 3 3/4 inch figures, and maybe it's more the bootleg market, that is about 5,000 American to do a 3 3/4 inch figure. So the disparity between that and 100,000, I was just wondering about the context, if you have any comment.
Sure. And one thing that I think comes up a lot is there's confusion with the tooling, and like you said, the plastic, the injection, the paint. You have to kind of separate those in the toy making process. The tooling is a one-time capital expense when you're building the mold.
Mm-hmm.
The making of the toy process involves plastic and paint, and it involves the tool that you created. That's what guarantees that the plastic and the paint come out and look like the toy you want it to look like. Otherwise, it would just be a glob of plastic with paint. So the tool, think of it, because it's a tool to ensure your product looks like what you want it to look like. And so then the idea that a 6-inch figure costs about $100,000, that's for a fully tooled, like 100% 6-inch figure, that's highly articulated, like a Marvel Legends, Black Series, MOTU Classic style. As you share parts, the cost comes down considerably. So every figure does not cost $100,000. Okay.
There we go. That's I think where the confusion was that I was like, man, is it 100,000 to make Rogue and then Jubilee and then Wolverine? I read it and I heard it in that context because just how my mind worked, but that makes sense. And so thank you so much for clarifying that, because that's really helpful. Now, what about like the life cycle of the mold, like how many times you can use it? And also, like, is it worth it for a company like Mattel to do something like a Wind Raider, which you tool up, but then there's not really like a repaint you can do for the Wind Raider, right? It's not like Strido or a Night Stalker where you can use it. Anyway, I just thought maybe if you had any comment on that, like the life cycle of the tool and what's worth only using once for vehicles, etc.
It's a great question. And to answer the second part first, it's why you see so many repaints, issued in all toy lines, from action figures to toy vehicles to dolls, is because they're trying to maximize that tool, that very expensive mold that to invest in. They need that to pay off. So there's two ways it can pay off, and this will link into the first part of your question. One is you more or less are only running it once, and you're selling enough units that it not only hits your that it basically generates the amount of profit you need to make as a company, plus pays for that one-time overhead cost of the tooling. So that's scenario one. Scenario two is that you sell enough toys over multiple cycles, reusing the tool either to make the exact same toy or more likely the exact same toy in a different color, till you sell enough units that it pays for the cost of that tool.
Okay.
So something like Castle Grayskull or the Sail Barge or the Sentinel, I know these large items that have been done for different brands that, with these pre-sales. With Castle Grayskull, we had to sell enough units that we're not only going to generate the amount of profit Mattel requires on any toy, like let's just say they require, for a nice round number, 10%. So we had to sell enough Castle Grayskulls to pay the required company 10% profit, plus also pay off the cost of the tool. So that would be subtracted from the profit. So once that was subtracted, there had to be enough profits left that we still hit the required profit level. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So What's the shelf life of a tool? Like, can you just pick it up again in 5 years and use it 6 more times? Or
technically, yes. I mean, they're made of iron. They're very sturdy.
Yeah.
So yes,
Right.
if properly stored, it would
Right.
last for a long time. The issue is it will wear out over time, and that depends on a lot of conditions. It depends on, how many times you use it, how many runs, what is the rest time between runs, like is it a day, is it a week, is it an hour, the type of plastic run through it, the weather conditions of the building where it's being used, if it's closer to the ocean or not. Salt can in the air from sea water can tend to degrade tooling.
Yeah, right.
So
right. That makes sense. All the physics behind it. That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
all of those factors can contribute to how far a tool wears down. However, if you have a good, let's say, working condition tool that you've only run 10% of its capacity, but and you want to use it in 20 years, well, you just have to find a place to put it. The problem is they're freaking huge.
Right.
Giant metal molds, like, a 6-inch figure mold is going to be like, this big. It's going to be, about 6 or 8 inches on any side of what you're trying to make. So
interesting.
Most companies aren't willing to pay to have these giant pieces of iron stored.
Sitting around. Yeah. Storage fees, warehousing fees. That makes sense. Yeah. Cool. No, that's a great answer. And are you allowed to comment on like what the production runs were for something like MOTU Classics versus DC Universe Classics? Were they 10,000 for one and 50,000 for another per character, or is that confidential?
I mean, I can't talk about exact production runs because that is confidential. I can tell you in general, because DCU Classics was a retail line.
Yeah, at big box.
So
yeah,
I can group that into any retail line. Is going to do light years more product than a product available, only online as a subscription to adult collectors who know when to log on. Like, anything. Just if you, without talking about any of the lines, but analyzing them from sort of a meta sales channel analysis, retail, online subscription. Well, any product, any industry, the retail is going to sell way better.
Right.
So was the I know that there was a DC / He-Man 2-pack for a while. Was that a store bought one, or was that an exclusive?
That was for Toys R Us, and it's basically came out of all of the major retailers, and this is still true. All want exclusive, sort of one-off product. It's kind of like in exchange for carrying the main line, they want what's called a customized item, or we call it exclusives. By the industry, it's called a customized program. So sometimes that can be a whole like owned line, like the way Walmart had first dibs on Origin for a season. Or it could be a single item, like you see that for movies a lot, like only at Walmart or only at Target you'll see this. So that 2-pack was designed to do something special for Toys R Us, to help differentiate them in the collector aisle. And it worked from a financial standpoint because there was very little, if any, tooling. It was just repaints, like we were talking earlier about finding ways to maximize the tooling. If you can make a toy that you've got to pay $100,000 against, and then 2 years later, because you still have the tool, you can make it again, but you don't have to put $100,000 against your profits. Like, there you go. That's why you see repaints.
Well, yeah. Every time I get into Transformers, I gotta buy Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp every single time, and then on a slight retool because I think the tool may also have the cone heads, which is Dirge, Thrust, and Ramjet. Even though they're slightly retooled, they still use a lot of parts from Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp. So every single time a Transformers line gets released, they get me for 6 Seeker Jets. That's what it feels like. I have it, and that's not just once. I did it for Generation 1, I did it for War for Cybertron, and I did it for Masterpiece / third party, though admittedly the third party Coneheads are a different mold because they're a third-party company. But I get the character 6 times, I feel like. So,
and you'll be doing it again.
Yeah,
I know.
He'll get sucked in again.
Every time I say, okay, that's it. I'm not getting a whole nother Transformer line. What do? I get a whole nother Transformer line. Like, it's just every time I say I'm done, bane of my existence. Yeah.
So,
Dude,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on, Paul.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, dude, that's how they got me with MOTU Origins. One of our supporters saw Skeletor and He-Man in store and heard me speaking about being excited about the Origins figures and offered to get the pair for me. He did, and I was quite satisfied with just having He-Man and Skeletor. And then, yeah, not about a month after that, they started appearing in stores here locally, and then the toy hunt began, and that was actually a really exciting thing to have MOTU figures in the store to be able to buy and to actually build a collection of. And I was speaking to my girlfriend earlier about, just sort of trimming down on certain lines, and and I mentioned that they've got Revelations figures now in the store, and I'm thinking I'm going to cherry pick. I want to pick up a Tila and an Evil Lyn for myself because I actually really enjoyed the character design on them. And she's like, "Yep, this is how it started with Origin," and yeah. But tooling is a thing, and it's something that you can actually really appreciate in the MOTU stuff, at least in my experience. I mean, GI Joe tooling is pretty unique for the most part for the toys, but MOTU is really creative with it. And I mean, if I look at okay, I mean, I'm going to grab two figures that are fairly unique tooling. I mean, you've got Mosquito, who is absolutely awesome. Love him. He does not suck, even though he does suck. And then you got Trapjaw. I mean, these are pretty unique tools. But then I've seen these legs on Man at Arms. I mean, on Manny Faces, and it's just so well handled. Tooling is a thing. But
that's basically Man at Arms with a Sergeant Slaughter head on it, right?
Yeah, they just changed the web gear, the PVC web gear or whatever on it, I think. So.
Anyway, enough gushing about Origins toys and MOTU and stuff.
I'm gushing about classics. Gush away.
I've got my Origins Merman right here.
Oh, there you go.
That's my favorite figure.
Yeah, Merman was my favorite of the baddies.
Origins figure. This and Mosquito. As
now,
as I'm concerned, it should
I
be called
love
Merman.
it, but it's weird because this Merman doesn't actually. This is a combination of multiple different Mermen. It's like this exact look does not exist anywhere.
Right.
It's like just a toy. Well, versus that, I've got that too. It's over there.
Which is cool though. I kind of love that about it.
That's okay. I knocked the head off of Vicron when I went to grab Merman, so I just got it back on.
That's 4.5 years quasi weird luck.
And a random question for you, Scott. What is the last toy you bought? Recently, maybe in the last month, last week. Maybe you bought a new toy yesterday.
Was it yesterday or was it 2 days ago? I just bought my latest was a Marvel Legends Shocker.
Nice.
Spider-Man villain. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, which I actually saw at retail, and I was like, "Whoa, zoink!" So
he does have he's got an interesting look, Shocker. I like it. It's very unique. A very unfortunate name for these day and age, but great looking figure.
Yeah. Well, it's good that they have it now because I remember when I was collecting that stuff for Toy Biz, I had to buy Shocker as part of Spider-Man Classics and not as part of Marvel Legends in the 2000s. So it's good they got it all under one umbrella now.
Yeah, it's funny, and that's a big reason I buy the Classics figures. Is I wasn't getting the Spider-Man Toy Biz line that was at the same time as Marvel Legends but wasn't called Marvel Legends.
Yeah.
Right, all these characters were in that line. And I just passed on all of them, and I always regretted it because I wanted a really good Spider-Man line. Hi, Egon. And that's why I'm so glad Marvel Legends now has put it it's making up for all the figures you missed, much as MOTU Origins is. That's exactly what it's all about. Buying these toys that we wish we could have gotten that we didn't, but now that we're adults and it's our own paycheck, we can buy what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, right? And I remember I was at Toy Traders one time, and I was trying to get Marvel Legends Spider-Man stuff, and the owner there, Matthew, was like, you know what? You could wait around for Marvel Legends, or you could just get these Spider-Man Classics that are in the exact same scale. And I'm like, I'll just grab it. They look just as good, right? So, but again, that was when Toy Biz had it, which is unfortunate, because I really like the Toy Biz stuff. Reminds me of a more innocent time. When I could just go to retail and pick up stuff, and people weren't buying multiples. Right. And the early build of figures, the Sentinel. It was the Sentinel that sucked me in. I think around 2005. That was in. Then I was in for Marvel Legends for about 10 years. Then I stopped, purged it all, rebought a bunch of X-Men, but it's the life cycle of a toy collector, you know.
But I mean, like we tend to rose color our memory of.
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, I'm with you too. It's like I was built like it was Galactus that drew me in, but I also got the Sentinel.
Yeah.
That was the wave right before. Yes,
but you know, there was also, I mean, remember the chase figures and how hard it was to find like Master Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like, you know, now we take that stuff for granted, and the figure sells for nothing. But at the time, it was like there's so much. Just, you know, it's like we remember, and it was. I agree. I think it was a better time. There was a lot more retail. You know, but you know, rose-colored glasses. It's interesting that we kind of forget about the frustrations we had, and we just remember the good parts.
Well, Giant Man, I remember having problems trying to track him down. I remember having to pay a premium to get Giant Man back then.
I got Giant Man online. I didn't want to miss out on any of the pieces, so I picked up the whole wave. I think I got it from Big Bad Toy Store. Actually, I got the whole wave. I just didn't want to miss out on it. I was in on Marvel Legends from the beginning, but I kind of just liked it. And then when they were releasing Galactus Build-A-Figure, that's when I started to love it. I was like, this is such a great idea for a Build-A-Figure. And I didn't want to miss out on Giant Man, so I picked up the whole wave from Big Bad Toy Store there. But as far as chase figures are concerned, sometimes it can be even the simplest figure that can be hard to find for whatever reason. But my mum has, and hi mum, she watches all these things. Hi mum. She has a photo of me as a teenager. I'm wearing, I've got long hair. It's the 90s. So I've got long hair like, you know, grunge era. I'm wearing a Guns N' Roses t-shirt, and I'm standing there in this photo, super excited to be holding an clear Invisible Woman action figure from the Fantastic Four line. So I was like, what an interesting snap moment in my collecting history. I was super excited for that one figure in the Fantastic Four.
No, that was hard. And lo and behold, right now on Hasbro Pulse, they have that figure.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, it's like that frustration you had as a child where that memory can now be directly linked to a purchase.
Right.
That's what it's all about, right? It's connecting the nostalgia and transposing it to what we can control better in today's adult collecting.
I don't even look at Hasbro Pulse. I can't get it here in Australia, so I don't even bother with it. The only way we can get it is if a third-party business picks it up. Like we've got, what is it called? EB Games, the other Zing.
Oh, yeah.
I think they call it. They sometimes will let us.
I think EB is now GameStop, but yeah. So.
Okay, we've still got EB here.
Oh, you do? Okay.
But, yeah. So they will pick up. We were able to get the Galactus, the Sentinel. And some other bits and pieces from Hasbro Pulse, I believe.
It's okay, Zazel. You have a Canadian shipping address. It's called Ken's House.
Thanks,
don't worry about that. But then we got to pay the Canadian shipping and then the Australian shipping. So you know.
Yeah, I tend not to get too invested in any of that, just in case I'm not able to get my hands on it. But I wanted to talk a little bit, Scott, if you would indulge me a little in your fascination for Egyptian hieroglyphics, and I wonder if we can piggyback off that too, whether or not you would have enjoyed bringing back a Stargate line of figures based on that.
I mean, I do love all. Anytime action figures and like Egyptian hieroglyphics or Egyptian, you know, visuals overlap, I do tend to like. I even bought a King Sphinx in the Power Rangers line. I've never seen Power Rangers, but he's got hieroglyphics, even though they're gibberish. I was like, I'm like curious if they
he was in one episode, I think, maybe two.
One episode
or two. It was when they did the Monster of the Day thing. King Sphinx was one of the monsters of the day at the time. I'm just old enough, but just young enough to remember that first season of Power Rangers. So
he wasn't
anyway,
like
go ahead.
He
wasn't a main character, no.
Oh no, I know enough of that. I know about the Power Rangers property.
I know you do. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I know he's not. Yeah. Anyway, either way. So you know, I'm a sucker for an action figure that has hieroglyphics on it. Was the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, even though, yes, I read what they put on him, and it's just gibberish. They didn't actually write them.
Real hieroglyphics. It's funny.
So, oh gosh, wait, what was the exact? What was the
Stargate.
exact?
Your
Oh, Star-
interest in yeah.
So I mean, I
Sorry,
like
my fault. I cut him off like I'm doing right now.
I like Stargate. I like the joke about William Budge's work being out of date, but it doesn't really make good toys. There is a collector market, especially when you consider like the the TV show and the whole universe thing. I don't know. It's not like, I guess I wasn't that in. I mean, like I have all the Stargate toys I need.
Sure.
I mean, there's an audience for it, but I don't know if it's big enough to like, especially at the prices we're at today.
True.
But if you sold like a Anubis or a Ramses Pharaoh action figure, that I'd buy.
Sure, of course. So, how long have you been studying up on Egyptian mythology and history? And have you been to Egypt?
Yeah, that's actually kind of what started it.
Okay.
So I went to Egypt right after college with two of my best friends from high school. Like after we all graduated, and then we went to Egypt for the summer, and it was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, just it's one of those, you just sort of get your brain going when you realize like how old, like even the Rome was like Egypt was 10 times older from Rome than we are even from Rome now. Or did I explain that? Like, I mean, it's like
You're talking about the relative age.
Yeah,
right?
It's like so like people don't realize how old this culture is. And yeah, I think then the other one was I don't know, maybe it was college or post college when I learned about Champollion, who is the French linguist who first was able to use the Rosetta Stone and some other hieroglyphs, like some of the stone needles, the obelisks that are in different parks that have names on them. He was able to use those in the Rosetta Stone to crack like no one could read it until 1815. Like it was an unreadable language, and then suddenly he cracked it. So we've only had Egyptology as a category for 200 years in human history. Like it's actually one of the youngest sort of divisions of science. So yeah, I think it was just such a fascinating story of how he did it, and I was like, I want to learn that, and and then I turned to YouTube. I'm like, well, someone must be doing this, and no one was.
Right.
That was actually part of it. I was like, wow, like you can learn anything on YouTube, and I was typing in like learn hieroglyphics, and there'd be like a few things just about the basics, but nothing like long term. I'm like, fine, I'll do it myself, like Beno said.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you got many interests, because I think I heard somewhere you're doing your MBA as well, or did I mishear that?
Yep, yeah, also doing that. So,
right, while consulting for Spector, while learning hieroglyphics, while making a channel. It's a busy day, isn't it?
And learning violin or knowing violin. Sorry.
Yeah. And there are a few other business propositions in there too that'll hopefully I'll be able to talk about sooner than later. So yes, I keep busy.
Oh, nice. Right.
Yeah. So if a toy company ever wanted to ask advice or something, have you got a specific charge out rate for services that they could just email you and say, here's what we need. What's your hourly rate? Is that how Spector works too?
Yep. So they can go to spectorcreative.com, Spector with an O, SPCTOR, creative. And yeah, I mean, it basically gives an overview of what I do, the services I provide. But you basically just email me and we talk about what your project is and what you'd like. And yeah, I do project fees, hourly fees. Yep, exactly how it works.
No, that's good. Well, I mean, I don't know if you had any other questions, but I first heard of Scott 10 years ago. I'm watching, I think it's the second season of Toy Hunter, right? And Jordan pulls out this brown-haired colored He-Man. This is 10 years ago. I didn't even know what it was. And he's like, I got to authenticate if it's real. Scott knows where I'm going with this, right? And then his friend says, I got this guy. He's called the Toy Guru online. So they go to Scott's place, and he identifies that Wonder Bread He-Man. Scott buys it right on the spot for, I think, $450, which now seems cheap, right, for a Wonder Bread He-Man. Did you end up keeping that Wonder Bread He-Man?
Well, it wasn't me buying it. It was Mattel.
Ah,
Right.
okay.
So
That makes sense. Because they
yes.
never said that in the episode. So I assumed with your collection that it was just going in your collection because
Oh yeah.
they ended the episode with the figure on the shelf, which I know you have to do for production reasons, but I didn't realize Mattel was buying it. Okay.
Yeah, if memory serves, I mean, I know I don't. It's not in my possession. I don't ever remember paying him myself, so I don't remember. But I want to say
Wow.
like Mattel was buying it.
Okay. I know Mattel was sent him on the hunt and you were involved for try to find Titus, Megator, the laser-powered He-Man, and the laser-light Skeletor. I remember that episode. I remember it was very clear Mattel was paying for that one. I didn't realize that they also would have bought the Wonder Bread He-Man. But I guess.
Want to say they did. My memory is a little vague on.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the episode maybe 4 years ago, which is why I still remember it. But yeah, okay, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah. And lo and behold, now we've solved that mystery. So.
Yeah, I included that in my video as well. That ended up not being a Wonder Bread thing. It was like a buy three get one.
Right.
Buy three get one offer that they had for a limited time. Right.
Yeah, I wound up stumbling across a letter in like a box of material I was using for a coffee table book.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's a complaint letter about the $1 promotion.
When you put it together, makes sense. Cool.
The way that unraveled, that mystery that we'd had for so long, the way that it unraveled in that way, and it could have been easily missed even now, had it not been, that letter hadn't been looked at and investigated further, we'd still be thinking it was a Wonder Bread promotion today. Yeah,
it honestly, when I read it, I actually got like that whole like goosebumps. Like, is this like? It's like this can't be like she's not described. But I'm like, I read it again. I was like, no, the details match up, and I also was able to sort of superimpose on that the like sort of corporate attitude that I know, like in general exists. And assuming that like the way I knew it today was similar to in the 80s, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That like one person would complain, it would get to the president, he'd be like, just stop doing it, just stop doing production. We can't afford bad press. Mail them a different figure, like and then they got stuck with all those weapons. So,
how did you get that letter, by the way? Because that would have been in a stack of old paperwork that was several years old after you left Maddie.
Yeah, So what I did is when I was at Maddie in 2009, I think it was, that we did a coffee table book on the history of the He-Man brand, and as it's actually perfect to come full circle to what one of your first questions about it sort of being a night job. To do this coffee table book required a lot of research and a lot of time going through old material, and that was not something I had time to do during the normal workday. So what I would do is I'd come in on the week. I would order books from the archive or order boxes from the archive, and then come in on the weekends and dig through them. And then things that looked interesting, I would mark. And if it wasn't labeled confidential or whatever, do not. I had permission to photocopy it, and everything I photocopied got reviewed to make sure it wasn't anything like. And like I said, I was basically mostly taking old memos and nothing that was like revealing anything. People were probably from legal were probably laughing at me like, why does he want a photocopy of this? So when I started the channel, I was just going through my old boxes from Mattel, and I had the material at home because that was the only time I had to work on the book. So I had to get permission to bring it home. Just going through that box again, I was going piece by piece, seeing is there anything interesting that might make a good video. And I found that. I was like, oh, that's the whole story.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, I just want to say, on the topic of mysteries, did you guys at Maddie Collector ever consider doing a Brave Star sort of resurgence, or like a Brave Star line for Maddie Collector?
Comes up all the time. I actually I think I've even done multiple videos on it.
Damn, I must have missed it because I do watch your stuff. So
no worries. That wasn't meant to be. But
he does one a day. It's hard to keep up.
Well, yeah.
Well, there you go. That brings me back to the question I was asking. One a day is too many. I should cut.
I do one a week, and I have a hard time keeping up. So.
Anyway, so Brave Star. It makes sense from a fan standpoint, going like, oh, similar line, Mattel was involved in the 80s. But if you flip it over, Completely different IP owner. Like Mattel doesn't own that; they have to license it. And the fan base, the idea is that the fan base would be big enough to support a line is vague at best. I mean, we're seeing like Silverhawks being done by Super 7. Like, you know, we did look into a lot. I mean, a lot of these were absolutely looked at, but the conclusion was, you know, very wary if there's enough fans out there to justify the sales, to justify the tooling investment.
Of course, yeah. No, that makes sense. It's just that from our perspective, or from my perspective here in South Africa, Brave Star is actually quite big as well. And I, from what I understand, it's bigger here than it was in the States. So I was always curious. That's why I'm kind of asking as well, because I don't really know. I didn't grow up in America during that time, so I don't know how popular it was. But judging by your question, like, it doesn't feel like there's enough, you know, people to accommodate the tooling that would be needed for that. So I was just curious if it was something you had played with, and you've actually answered a few questions there, because you mentioned the Silverhawks as well. Not that I'm a fan of that at all, but the fact that you guys had considered that, that's actually really interesting. Yeah. Because I think sometimes people have this perception that in the corporate, that people that, you know, I don't want to call it you guys, but they go, oh, the corporate guys never think of this. They have this perception of, oh yeah, they don't think of that. They're just worried about selling whatever's new, and they don't think about these things. And I think it's refreshing to hear that, you know, that these ideas are explored, that these IPs are explored, and maybe, you know, considered at some point.
Well, we all have a dream IP to come back, right? Like, I'd love to see Cops and Crooks come back, right? But it's like, you know, not much is moving on that front, right? Other than those 1-inch figures that they're,
can't say that.
Yeah.
I would love to see Dino Riders. I would love to see a modernized Dino Riders.
I may be the only one who wants Rock Lords.
I think people are watching this, like, especially GI Joburg fans are waiting for him to say something about Dino Riders, and I just did. So, I would love that. I think it would be so cool. I think, personally, I think Mattel is in the right position to do it. They've got these amazing dinosaur sculpts that they've been doing for the Jurassic Park line, which are outstanding.
You can't
Absolutely
do that.
love those toys.
No?
Yeah.
No?
That's a great fallacy right there. Yeah, you can't just take a tool that was designed for a specific IP, even if it's something as generic as an animal or a human body. So WWE does not use the same body bucks that DC does. There's like basically, you could think of it as like a male, you know, buck and a female, you know, body, generic. So yeah, so people say that like, oh, they have like, you know, all these dinosaurs from the Jurassic Park line. They could just do it. That's exactly it. Like, it makes sense on our side, but then you have to like, no, you can't do that because Universal owns those dinosaurs.
I think Universal needs to get the Dino Riders license or something. So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm literally looking,
and that's interesting. I didn't actually consider that.
I'm literally looking at my WWE figures there, because Mattel would have had that license in the first few years that this MOTU Classic was going on, and I'm thinking with the same height of figure, they never did reuse any of the tooling, is what it looks like. I'm looking at my Hogan and my Legion of Doom, my Bret Hart right there, and I don't see any reused bucks at all. So that brings up a good
point. You would only see it in reverse. So like that Sergeant Slaughter Man-at-Arms that you were holding up at the beginning, Zaxel. So you're seeing Mattel product on licensed IP.
Right.
If you will. Right. So, but gotcha. It only goes in one direction. So yeah, that's why a WWE body cannot be used in a He-Man line, but a He-Man body could be used in a WWE line.
Okay, I see.
Because the because He-Man sort of is owned by Mattel, but that's a whole other story.
Sure, yeah.
This was fun.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on to the show.
And I love talking toys. It's so great to like just chat like all this stuff. I love anytime like you want to like regroup. I'm always glad to connect.
Well, I've seen you a couple times on my good friend Adam's channel at Go Figure there, because he and I talk often. You've been on there a couple of times, so I figured.
Yeah, you know. Like I said, it's great to just. It's not like I don't really get to talk to my daughter and wife about toys, so it's nice.
Perfect. Well, next time, Scott, that we have you on, we'll just talk toys and less about your business background. It must be boring to have to talk about all the time.
No, anything you're on. I mean, I do have, I probably even have a Sergeant Slaughter story somewhere. So.
I'd love to talk about your time at Jack's as well, right? So, yeah.
I've been very blessed. I've had a lot of great opportunities. All right, take care, guys.
You're dismissed.
Bye.
You're dismissed.
Perfect!
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment down below.